2021, 4 men got together to make a radio show that nobody asked for. This is the result.
Welcome to Broad Street Radio. I'm Michael Morris with my buddy Johnny Meanick, Johnny Cash, if you will, because he's a financial advisor. If you didn't do well, could we call you Johnny Loses Cash, like Johnny Loves Jazz?
Totally. I would absolutely embrace it and encourage it.
Well, I'm glad that we also brought another one of your clients on the show, Ken Perry, that now knows you could lose his money. Ken,
yeah.
How are you and how confident are you after I just said that about John?
Should be very
pretty
nervous.
confident.
Yeah.
So we have a very diverse panel, not in race or gender, but in terms of educational status, shall we say.
Yeah.
Jonathan's slightly above average on that scale, like a Forrest Gump, but he did go to college. Ken, how much college did you have?
0.
Okay, and I had a good 4.5 years to get a degree that says I could teach. So
Wait, you went to college to be a teacher?
Well,
education?
That's how it started until I had to actually teach those little pricks. And then I was like, the kids were just a little unruly. You know, when you're the substitute or whatever,
right?
They think they can get away with stuff. And I was only like 21, and I was like, listen. I'll follow you out to the park.
Listen here, AA Ron.
Yeah. I was trying to get a date to the prom with some of these girls, and I was like, I should not be doing this. But let me tell you how I impressed them. I'm like, I'm not even on my dad's insurance. And all of a sudden it's like, and I got cigarettes over here. But we don't need to go into that. Thank you, Upper Arlington High School, for giving me that 1 year opportunity. The reason we want to cover this today is
sponsored by Betsy DeVoe.
Sponsored by Southwestern City Schools. If your kid wants to drive a truck, that's the education you'll get. Actually, that would be great to throw their logo up. They can't read it, but they'll know it's there. So the reason we wanted to talk about this is the previous show we were talking about customer service and the way that people are being treated that are they a little entitled? So Jonathan went on a screed about
that.
No. That's why I like this show is we literally can fire this up right away.
Yeah.
So part of it is we were talking about how culture has changed and how education has kind of faltered through that. So Jonathan, why don't you start about how you thought the college experience is raising people to be little babies?
See, I don't know if it's the college experience.
It's the way that I just said it was so good, and that he just should have dovetailed on that. And said, now he's breaking down what I said.
No. It's just that. So I think there is a disconnect between what people are being fed and what is actually on the plate, right? They have this idea that they're eating filet mignon and lobster and the best au gratin mashed potatoes ever, and it's Alpo that they're putting out in front of them. So people go to school with this expectation of, and you mentioned it in this last show that, I got a certificate. I'm HVAC certified. Now I need, $80 an hour. Well, that job doesn't exist, right? And so the same thing happens is that people go to school, they pay for, I don't know what, 100 to 200 grand to have a 4-year education. They get their degree that says they are now, they have a degree in philosophy, and then they're like, whoa, what the hell do I do now?
Right.
They can't figure out with all that knowledge that they were given that degree is worthless and that they have no skills. They have no.
Well, that's what makes me laugh when you see the graduation rates from some of these schools and they're like, we graduate 70% of our kids. Well, where do they go?
Right.
Well, we don't know.
Right.
But we send that letter to get the donation to the college.
100%.
But in the trades, it's almost like blue collar work is looked at like you should be ashamed. Your dad's a plumber.
Right.
And you should be ashamed if your dad's a plumber. But if he does HVAC, that's so much better.
Right.
I'm just kidding. No plumbers watch this. They don't have money for free YouTube.
No. They're not taking the time
they can listen
to watch
on iTunes, couldn't they? I'm just kidding. They don't have phones.
No, that means they would have to not be working to watch this.
How stupid would it be if they actually were listening to this in their pocket while they're doing the job, while they got their elbow deep in there in a gas station or something? Like, I love this show.
Well, not only that, but they're like, hey, I'm getting paid.
Yeah. Well,
whereas the person sitting on the street corner with a philosophy degree trying to ponder what they thought about their life, asking for money. I mean, come on, man. Like, at some point, colleges have to be held accountable. Now, listen, I'm shitting all over education, right? I have 2 degrees. I have a bachelor's degree and I have a master's degree.
So you're the dummy that paid for it. Now you're upset that you paid for it.
No. I'll explain this here in a second. But so when I went through my undergraduate degree, It was all about the college experience, right? And it was fun. It was great. I learned a lot of things that I do not use at this point, right? People don't know this, but I actually went to school for physical therapy. So I have a bachelor's of science in exercise physiology with a minor in neuroscience.
He knows what he's doing. He's constantly massaging my leg when we're in meetings.
Right.
And it doesn't hurt. It just feels weird.
I know a lot about that stuff. I use zero of it. My master's degree is a different situation where I feel like the one thing that it did is it made me more of a professional because you had to do work to get it. You couldn't just skate by like you could in an undergraduate class, right? You actually have to show up. You have to present. You have to talk to people. You gotta be a professional, right? So while I wouldn't trade any of that experience because it's got me to where I am and what I'm doing, colleges have to be held accountable to what they're promising kids, right? We talked in that last show that I don't care if my kid goes to school or not. I mean, if they want to go to school, I'll help guide them in that direction, but they better work at it. They're not showing up to just go get hammered drunk every weekend like I did.
So, but let's look at it
like
this
we
way.
all did, yeah.
Kenny didn't go to school, and yet his daughter goes to school,
Right.
to college.
Why do you think it's important that she goes to school? I'm curious.
For me, because I didn't.
Right.
Did you not go because you didn't have the opportunity or because you figured out your path? Because I think today, I don't think there are people that are saying, this is what I want to do and I'm going to go do it,
right.
Which is why most entrepreneurs don't start till they're 38 to 42 years old, right? So you're technically an entrepreneur because you started your own thing from scratch.
Yeah.
But you didn't start at 20 to 30 years old.
Right. So really it had to do a lot with my background of growing up. I didn't have no choice. I had to just go to work.
Right.
It was just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
So that's where I did. I had to go.
But today it would be different because
absolutely,
you could get a school loan
absolutely
and go to find out I'm really good at fixing things, so that's what I should do. But now you've got this loan hanging over your head for the next 10 years or whatever. I would think that, like when you said college experience, that part, I think if you're saying that to Ken, he would be like, I was doing that already at like 21 years old.
Right.
Without having to go to school.
pretty much.
Right.
Without having to go in debt to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I think the college experience is exactly what we all think. We're tailgating on the weekends.
Cakes and eggs Saturday morning, baby.
Yeah, we're more social beings than we are studying.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I never told you the story. I went to Ohio State and took for finals for one day. They didn't even know, I wasn't enrolled. So my school's on semesters, they were on quarters. So my buddy, he's like, hey man, what are you doing this week? And I'm like, nothing, we're out of school. And he's like, you want to go to camp? Like, I got to take finals. I took a French final. I took an art history final because they didn't know who I was. It was all by your social security number. But what was cool about it is I actually got to go. Actually, a lady called on me in fluent another language because she thought I'd been there the whole time. That's how little they knew about their students, right? Because it was just social security number.
Oh my gosh.
And I went to a school that was much smaller, not in terms of you might have 30 people in your class, but as the semester went on, there'd be 17. People just started dropping out.
Oh yeah.
So I got both sides of it, but I realized like these people that are going to the big institutions, you're going for the sweatshirt. You want to be an Ohio State alumni or Oregon alumni or whatever. The education doesn't matter. You can go anywhere and get this education. But they all are still paying. I mean, we're 40-some years old. They're still paying student loans. But I couldn't get a $100,000 loan at the bank at 19 years old to buy a house, but I can for education.
Sure can. It's just that important, Michael, that you go and figure out who you are.
But do you tell your kid, like Raven's example, and we won't edit her name out, just so if this really goes gangbusters, they'll know she's a big deal. But when she's going to school, you got to be proud because she got that opportunity because you helped her get there, right? But your son is much younger because you family planned in the most crazy way ever.
Yeah.
Will it be important for him? Like, do you see that as important for him because he could learn the trade and go to school? Or you see what I mean?
I mean, I think it's, main thing is get them through high school.
Right.
And then allow them to make their choice from that point. I'll be honest with you. I'd rather see him go into a field like what we do.
Right.
HVAC, plumbing. It don't have to be HVAC, but be a tradesman.
Be an electrician, man. I mean,
the struggle is so huge.
Don't some of those schools help you pay for the trade school?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're not carrying that $100,000 loan but you can come out and within a year.
Absolutely.
Well, one of my best friends works for Riker, and Riker will pay to send a new grad to tech school to learn how to work on cars. Now you're making $12 an hour. You're wrenching. It's hard work. It's hot. It's sweaty. It's dirty. Nobody wants to do that.
Well, and I think that's where they get it confused, because I feel like when they do go to school and they get all this, they're told they're going to be top paid people.
Yeah.
And then it's a rude awakening when they get out.
Well, that's
It's
how
nowhere
when
near what they
they don't
expecting.
help place you.
Right.
So, for example, when I'm graduating, I don't want to be a teacher, and I literally tell my advisor every year I want to get into radio and all this. And he's like, that's a great, like, almost like I said, I want to make balloon animals. And he's like, that is a great thing.
Funny story. One of my best friends told his guidance counselor in a very serious manner. He's like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And this kid he got a 32 on his ACT after he forgot his calculator. Like, that's how smart he was. He's like, I'm going to be a professional beekeeper. And the guidance counselor's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, he was trying, like, and it was a complete joke. Like, I was just, dicking with him, and but he thought,
Don't you think it's funny that guidance counselors are helping you get somewhere that they couldn't get? It's almost like if I said I want to be a guidance counselor, there's only so many of these jobs.
Right.
But if I said for a living I want to jump out of planes without a parachute, that's what I want to do.
That's a good idea.
Here's what you should do.
Here's how you can do that.
And I will tell you this, my guidance counselor in high school, when I was a sophomore, I'll never forget this, said, no one will ever, you'll go to college, they won't let you stay. You won't finish. When people meet you and hear the way that you speak, they'll want nothing to do with you. And I said, that is so wrong. And I want to say, Miss Adams, you were correct about all of that. All of that's been.
I was
a
getting ready
mess.
to say, you had the best guidance counselor ever.
Yeah, she literally, but she had to tell me in
actually
front
told you what you needed to hear.
And I was like, just you wait. One day I'll be wearing cargo shorts, doing shows on YouTube that no one watches. Take that, you fat ass. I hope nothing but cancer on her. But that is what kids, they're getting through high school, but they got the same thing when they go through college, right? Like my advisor, when I asked him how to get into radio, I don't even know. Mm-hmm. Listen, Dick, I'm here for you to open a door. If all the doors are locked, I could have gone and learned to drive a truck, which is what Goose wanted to do with Maverick, if you remember.
Yeah.
Still got the name of that trucking school. We all should have done that. Instead, we're doing this with our lives.
Right. You're 100% correct. And, but I think the problem is that parents are shifting the responsibility of being a parent on anything and everybody else. Absolutely. And the blame. Yes.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, in that last show, I told you guys a story about my son. Every morning I tell him when he goes to school, I give him a hug and a kiss and I say, go be a helper today. I don't care if you're the smartest, just go do something good for somebody else.
Absolutely.
And parents don't want to take on that role or responsibility. They should be guiding their kids. They should be having conversations with their kids about, hey, do you know college is fantastic and you can learn a lot. And from a social point of view, it will help you grow as a person. There's no doubt about that. But you're going to make a lot more money if you just go get a certification and be a diesel mechanic.
Yeah.
Or if you be an HVAC technician or an electrician or something like that. Because you could come out and at some point, you're not going to make 80 grand your first year, but year 3 or 4, am I completely wrong about that? Or is that?
So really, no, you're not actually. You can make really, really good money just depending on how far you want to go with it.
Right.
So, they have HVAC engineers, for instance. There's a lot of money into that, so it's unlimited. Really.
One of the highest paid trades, underwater welding.
Yes.
And obviously it's a highly technical skill, but those guys make tons of money. Mm-hmm. Parents are not having the conversation with their kid of, hey, I want you to know there are other opportunities. They're not even and you know what? How many parents actually sit down and have family dinner every night anymore? Not very many.
We do in our house.
Yeah, I do too.
Absolutely.
It's important. It's very important. Mm-hmm. It's important to my wife. It's important to me. And nobody does that anymore. Mm-hmm. So when do you have time to talk to your kids, right? If you're not sitting down as a family having dinner, when are you going to talk to them in the morning first thing? No, everybody's rushing to go to school or go to work. At night, no, everybody's trying to get ready and go to bed, get ready for the next day.
But there are gaps in there where you could make a different, like
You could, you're right.
you can drive into school and have that conversation. You can not watch television and have that conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad, one of the things I'll remember my whole life is we'd go run to pick up a pizza that was 10 minutes away, but we would have those conversations. But the radio was always on, just like President Jim Biden. Remember he said, get him by the record player? That's what gave me the idea of being in radio. But my dad was always listening to the radio, which is what I was like, that would be a cool job. He never told me I couldn't do it. Everybody else told me I couldn't do it, and they were right. But it's one of those things where I think you've got to be realistic, but I think you also have to have somebody that says, you could do this. Here's all the things you're going to have to do to get there, but you could get there.
Yeah.
And I think we look at colleges. I remember my dad broke it down this way. College is the dumbest thing because it's just, can you handle multiple assignments that don't necessarily go together, but can you complete tasks, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what a trade school would do. How many
100%.
tasks, right? But I think people look at college like they're going to instill knowledge. No. They don't. Yeah. That's not what they do. They take your money.
Indoctrinate more than anything
Correct.
else.
So what we're seeing now is a bunch of kids getting out of college that don't know what they want to do because they never thought about it to begin with.
Right.
They're not coming out and saying, I want to be a vet. They're saying, I want to get a degree in health or science and don't know what to apply it to. What I want to know is whose fault is that? Well, I blame the parents.
Or they
parents
three
and the
times
schools
while they're in school.
Yeah.
I want to be this. Nope. I want to be this. Nope. I want to be that. You know,
well,
why they're going to school.
I mean, the university, you know, I'm proud that I went to Miami University, but I had nobody there that was like, hey, you know, you're kind of an idiot. Maybe you should not be in physics.
I would have told you if I knew you.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's not that hard of a job. Someone could have just come along and say, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe you should go this direction. The problem is that nobody wants to be accountable. Parents want to shift the blame. Colleges don't mind taking that check, but at the end of the day, they're going to cash it and say, you know, piss on you. You're not my. It's not my problem.
Right.
That's just that's the way schools are designed. And my
favorite phrase.
I know the issue I have with this is that I mean, look, $200,000 per student. You know, there's 60,000 students at Ohio State. I mean, start doing the math, man.
Well, how many of those graduate, right?
Well,
so that's the other part is how many people are there on the Stanley Jackson rule where they're there for 7 years because they're going to play football for 4.5 and don't finish with a degree.
Right. Yeah. There should be some kind of a method of accountability. I mean, there should.
But again, is it on the college? Because think about it. If you go to work and you do an absolute shithouse job, terrible, but we can't find anyone to replace you, so you still have a job. Jobs don't always hold you accountable either. Not all jobs, right? But if you don't do your job right, your clients will fire you before Edward Jones will. If Ken doesn't set something up, I've already sent them a note. But if Ken doesn't do his job right as the owner, he's going to feel that sting right away, and then the reputation gets ruined.
Yeah.
In college, you're just another number. Mm-hmm. But I do love when you actually make it in your college. We want you to come back and speak and write a check while you do that. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they had nothing to do with your success other than the doors were unlocked when you showed up.
It is the greatest Ponzi scheme ever. I mean, think about it. They're just feeding more money in to push out what kind of a product? I mean, what are they making? What are they producing?
It's the only product that doesn't get better as it goes on longer.
Yeah, that's true.
Because again, it's the same subject matter because the person instructing it has
rinse,
it down.
and repeat, man.
Right. So I'm not teaching you something new because I can't. In media, they're still teaching things that were going on in the 80s and 90s because that's what the textbooks are written. Yeah. Nobody who does it in the field writes books to tell you how it's changing. So now you have to research it on your own. Why would I? I'm already getting per student. I know how many kids are coming in. Can you put this on a test? Can I grade it? And can you get it right? But you're not prepared. And it's not just the media field. That's just the one I know that changes the most. I mean, one of the examples I was telling you is that from 1952 up until 1989, the average person had to hear an ad 3 times to understand what it was. And that was who you are, what you do, and what action do you want me to take, right? There was no websites. Either call me, drive into my office, whatever.
Yeah.
Now with YouTube, Spotify, all these other things, take a guess at how many times I have to hit one person to get them to make a decision.
Well, I mean, it's also attention span, so I'm going to throw out 20, 30.
That's close, Kenny.
I was thinking 30, 40.
It will get there. It's 14 now. So it went from 3 to 14 in the span of 10 years. Think how, and they're not even accurate on that because every day something new comes out. I don't care if it's OnlyFans. It's another thing to distract you from whatever you had, right?
Yep.
So, but I could tell you that because I'm on the outside. Oh my God.
That's $1.
That's $1 fine. I hope it's a sales call. I want him to take it while we're doing this.
Oh, that would be great.
It ain't.
Oh, that's too bad.
So disappointing.
It is.
So the point of that being is that technology, when you're actually turning the wrench, you guys would know faster. They have to keep updating you. Whereas in our field, if we went to school for it, it's what somebody else learned before. And that's the sad part is that education's not getting better. They're almost dumbing it down. Like, we know you're not going to get this. So let's give you 30% of it and let you catch up. But that's just the experience. I mean, in my daughter's class, she's a freshman in high school, and these other kids aren't keeping up with her. So when she's done with her work, she just gets to read. And these other kids are struggling. The teacher's doing nothing different. She's treating them all the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a problem. And I don't know what her, teacher to student ratio is, but that's certainly a concern. We actually had the same concern with my son is that, he's in second grade and he's reading at a fourth and fifth grade level. And thankfully we had teachers that saw that and went to other teachers and said, hey, this kid is really good at reading and he loves to read. So like they're giving him books from higher level classes that the other teachers own. So at least they're trying to help him. But the teachers understand, like, I can't spend all my time on one student who is, excelling because I've got 10 other students whose parents are addicts and they haven't eaten in 3 days. And so it's like, how do you teach a kid? And I know we're talking about, primary education versus secondary, but how do you teach a kid who hasn't had a good meal in 3 days and whose parents are in jail or dead or, the education system, college is one thing, but the lower levels, it's a
different animal.
It's an impossible task. I mean, and if those kids are getting left behind here, college has to dumb it down, right?
Right.
Like I think college was forced to change what they're doing because of the amount of kids enrolling and the quality of student that was enrolling is completely different.
I agree with that, but I also look at the admission scandals and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
Where if you've got money, it doesn't matter, right? If you got money, we'll find a way to get you through, or grants or whatever. When I saw Dr. Dre's kid got into the School of Music at USC, I thought, God, she must be great at music. And then they announced the Dr. Dre School of Music building and all, so he's funding it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if that had anything to do with it. Now, maybe she's great at it, but we can't all build buildings for our kids, right? And I just look at the college experience. Like, I had a great time, but I took it seriously. I probably took it way too serious because, again, I was being competitive about it. But I know people that are like, oh, I'll go back and get it later. They're still paying their student loans and didn't finish.
Yeah, they ain't going back.
But I think once you get in the real world, you look at it and go, that was so unnecessary.
Oh, totally. I mean, especially when, like in my field, I work with people from all different walks of life, from HVAC technicians to farmers to, people who, swindle money from other folks.
Yeah, people that don't have real jobs that show up in sweatshirts and just talk on a microphone.
Right. But I was exposed to that broad array of different personalities and cultures and backgrounds. And it's like, oh, wow, holy shit, I didn't need to go to school to be successful. Mm-hmm. Right. But
you needed that piece of paper to set you apart. Just like you had to go to, if you have that paperwork that says you know how to work on HVAC, you set yourself apart from the guy who's just, the $12 an hour assistant or helper.
The thing with that too is, them guys pay all this money to go to those classes. They come out and they still can't even put a wire nut on.
Right.
So, I mean,
we've dealt with people who own businesses that don't even know the thing they're installing, how to measure it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, boys, did we start negative here? No, I think we were pretty positive. So either go to school but know what you're planning on, right? Or for you kids out there from Grove City High School, the tortilla goes first and then you scoop everything. Okay? Tortilla first, then, okay. That's Broad Street Radio for this week. We'll talk
Backside
to you next week.